Welcome back, guys, to February's Hug of 2026. You may notice that we're in a new location, so hopefully you like it. And before we get into it as well, I just wanted to say that we're now on Hivebright instead of Bevy. So we're on a completely new platform. It's going to help centralize all these hugs for HubSpot. And it kind of actually marries up well with our topics today as well for our hug, because it's all about centralizing your commerce, your quotes, your pricing, your invoices, everything all in one place. But before we get into that, I also wanted to mention, if you haven't already checked out our next hug for next month, make sure you register for it. We talk all things HubSpot and how to help make your life easier. We should have the link in the description below. So yeah, but yeah, today we're talking about Commerce Hub and all the great things that HubSpot offers there. And I'm here with Jayden too. So Jayden, it's actually your last hug with Neighborhood before you head off and go on to your own ventures with your own store. So we thought it's actually the perfect topic for you to cover because it's all things commerce and you know a lot about it. So
yeah, I've done it a few times over the years, which is really exciting. And I suppose there's new updates recently, the new quote tool.
Exactly, yeah. So basically today I think the main thing we want to be talking through is pretty much like there's lots of businesses out there that have very fragmented systems with how how their sales team are quoting. They might still be in spreadsheets or using completely different platforms to getting signatures, and then the processing in accounts, invoicing, updates. How do you manage subscriptions and tiers? There's so many different layers to it, and it can get very messy very easily.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's something I've noticed over the last few years, I suppose, working with different clients is there's so many different ways that people, and everyone is so spread out across their different avenues. Like someone will use Stripe over here, they'll use Xero over here. Some people will send out invoices manually instead of running subscriptions, and there's so many different things, and it's so, I suppose, diverse when you can just pull it all into one in HubSpot. It's just super easy. Yeah, and I
think that's the main theme for everyone is like, how do we make our lives simpler when there's already so much going on? So I think today we're really just going to explore Commerce Hub. What is it? The new quote tool. And how that could work for businesses. And if you are looking for something simpler and all sitting in one spot, how can we do that within the Commerce Hub in HubSpot?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, very exciting.
Cool. All right, so first up, let's talk about what does the Commerce Hub cover. So if you wanted to pull that up over in Commerce Hub, what's the key things that you get in it?
Yeah, so in Commerce Hub, if you follow my screen, on the left-hand side there is Commerce, and under that you've got a few different options here. Obviously there's the overview, quotes, products, invoices, payments, payment links, so on and so forth. Big long list. The main thing is, obviously we're going to talk about today, is quotes, invoices, payments, and subscriptions. The quotes tool just got a revamp. It's CPQ quoting now, which is really cool. Previously it was a bit limiting, and now you can do a lot more in it. Invoices obviously goes from from quotes into invoices, and then obviously you got to capture payments somewhere, so that's where payments and payment link fall in. And then if you want someone to be on a reoccurring payment link and pay every month, that's a subscription. So they're the main four that we're going to cover today, and they're probably the main four that you want to tie under Commerce Hub in HubSpot, and probably the main four that you probably want to just pull all into HubSpot and just sort of, I'm not saying ditch those other apps or use them, but obviously we can sync them, integrate them into HubSpot, and just make your life 10 times easier.
Okay, so first up with the quotes. What is familiar with it? From my look into it, I use the old quote tool a lot, directly from deals and building out the quotes. And the main things I recall from that is, yes, you can add in your products and stuff like that. You do, there's no tiered pricing kind of customizations. I recall that we would have to build custom quote templates, which could be fiddly, especially if you're not very techy. And then once you sent it out, there was no ability for signatures and stuff, so you had to kind of, again, do custom stuff. So it required dev work in order to make it like a really functional quoting tool. But there's still a lot of very similar elements to the new quote tool, but what's the key differences?
I think the key difference is the customization. So now there is, I suppose, a Commerce Hub seat in HubSpot, which sort of eliminates, I suppose, previously you could do e-signatures, but you're limited to 10 before it would start charging you, sort of thing. Now it's, you get a Commerce Hub seat and you kind of have e-signatures built in.
But yeah, in the Commerce Hub seat, it should cover your signatures and stuff. So that's no longer a concern anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
And I could see with building out your own custom quote, design and style, it's a lot easier for the everyday person to do.
Definitely. It's there are certain options that already come in, but it already looks a lot nicer. And it's sort of trying to, I suppose HubSpot's trying to steer everything towards a similar builder. So the way you build emails, the way you build your landing pages, kind of like that drag and drop functionality, that's the direction that the quoting tool is going
towards. Keeps it consistent, I like that.
Yeah, definitely. But we can take a look at creating a custom quote as well.
Yes.
So on the left-hand side, if you go to Commerce and Quotes, and if you have, I suppose, upgraded to the CPQ quote system, if you haven't, you'll still be on legacy quotes and none of this will apply to you. You'll still be using the old quote system, but this is for CPQ quotes. So if you go to the top right-hand corner, you can go to Create Quote, and then you can choose a deal to associate it with, which is slightly different to how it used to be. You used to create a quote and then kind of it'll go through different steps and sort of ask what deal you want it to go with, what contact, everything like that. It's slightly different. So from here, we choose that and we can actually select our quote template. As you can see, we've obviously only got this one in CPQ and the rest are legacy quoting, which are unavailable now. Then we'll go create quote.
Oh, and the other thing before we get into it, you can still build out the quotes directly from the deal as well.
Yeah. So you can go to the deal and you can go create quote. Would be very similar to doing this. I've just done it from the quote tool and selected the deal. You can get the deal and then you can create a quote. So there's kind of both ways you can do it.
Yeah, we're not slowing down the velocity for your sales reps to be able to send those quotes out.
So now you can notice that here on my screen, it looks very much like building an email. You've got drag and drop functionality. You can sort of move it around a little bit in here. You can also hide modules if you don't want to see them. So obviously, if you don't want the cover letter and the executive summary just at the top, you can remove those. But you can also drag them down into different sections and move them around, which is super handy. So if you don't want the executive summary at the top, you can take it all the way down to the bottom and put it down here as well. Obviously, if you don't want it at all, you can hide it too.
So this is great if you've also got a proposal presentation that you've put together to support the quote, or any additional information brochures or anything that helps give people more context so that they still have a clean looking quote that's easy to make a decision on, but all the additional information if they need to.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I suppose these just upload like a file. So you just go here and you can add any attachment. So it's simple as just clicking an attachment over here and inserting the file. So then now we've got a file here, which is super easy, and I probably don't want that cover letter to sit at the very top. I might want to sit it down further just to make it look a little bit nicer. Yeah, the drag and drop is
already so much easier, in my opinion.
Yeah, and you can also add in line items pretty easily. You just go here, add in a line item. We'll add in this chair. So it's super easy. And if you wanted to customize, I suppose, what appears here, whether it's a quantity, unit price, discount, so on and so forth, on the left-hand side, you can do exactly that. You can add in image URL, so you can have an image as well appearing here of what the chair might look like, which is a little bit nicer than previous. You can also move it straight to the front, so you might have that image URL first, then the name, quantity, so on and so forth afterwards.
Yeah, and I recall the old quote tool didn't really have that support for the image URL, like having it next to it. So I think that's a really good plus. But obviously, once you've customized your own business template for this, your sales team shouldn't have to do any of this customization for every single quote. But I think it also gives you the flexibility that if you are dealing with, say, a big ticket opportunity, and you know that you may need to restructure things to help, present the information in the best way possible to help them make a decision, you have that flexibility to do it for those more custom quotes.
Yeah, definitely. And just important to note here, I'll just mention it. So we can probably sort of do a video on this later, but if you edit the product here, you can go down to the pricing model, and you can notice here, obviously, we're already in the quote, you can't adjust any products at this stage, I suppose on the rates they are, but this is where you would edit the flat rate or tiered pricing as well. You kind of have to do that first in the product section, which we can do a video on another time, but this is where you would adjust that, sort of having that tiered pricing in your quote. Awesome. From here, we can obviously go to share it with who we're sending it to. Important to note, there is actually some AI features in the quote tool already. So you can see up here, we've got the closing agent, which is turned on.
Talk me through the closing agent. What's the whole point of this?
Yeah, so the idea of this, obviously you got to go set this up on the back end. We can probably do a video on that as well on how to do that. But for now, you might notice that down in the right-hand corner here, it says, greetings, I'm an AI assistant. Basically what this closing agent does is when you send it to your customer or client or whoever you're sending this particular quote to, they will have a little sort of AI agent in the bottom right-hand corner.
Like a little chat box.
Yeah, little chat box. And they can ask questions about the quote. So if you have a lot of information in a quote, added in heaps of terms and conditions, heaps of information there that might seem a bit overwhelming.
It can clarify for you.
It can clarify. They can ask questions. They can say, what line items are involved in here? It'll tell them what other terms and conditions, so on and so forth, and it'll give them the answer.
So I actually think this is pretty cool because that also helps with your deal velocity, especially, I don't know how many business owners out there that are still working in crazy hours in the morning and looking at these things and making decisions.
Yep.
Obviously your sales reps may not be ready at the phone at that point, but that could be a pivotal point for making a decision. And if they've got a chatbot that can help answer those questions and fill in that gaps, that could be a decision now rather than waiting to get hold of them over the next couple business days.
Yeah, definitely. And it'll make it a lot easier for people to see terms and conditions, because I feel like sometimes you see a big load of text, you're like, I don't want to read that. So.
Who reads the terms and conditions? Yeah. Okay, cool. I like that one.
Yeah,
That's
awesome.
Cool.
And then I suppose the sharing functionality, sending it, everything like that is very similar to how it used to be. There's no real differences there. Obviously, you can connect payment links, people can pay through them. Everything like that is all the same functionality. It's not changed too differently there. It's all very much, you can add a payment link in, someone can pay, and then the status, once you go to share, we'll go to pending signature, and then once they pay, obviously, or sign, depending on how you want the quote to function, then you can go from there. You don't have to collect payments, you can just go an e-signature instead, because some people I know like to just have a signature quote and then sign off on, I suppose, the term of the pricing, and I suppose the terms and conditions.
Depends on the model, right?
Exactly, yeah. So you can just have an e-signature and they can sign off on what the fee might be, and then you might have your own payment terms, like a B2B company might want to send out an invoice and it might be, 30 days and a month payment terms. You can still do all that in HubSpot, but you can also collect payments with the quote as well, so then you've got payment immediately when the quote has been accepted.
Okay, cool. I think that gives us a kind of good high-level overview of the new quote tool. If you guys do have any questions as well, make sure you chuck it into the chat. We'll definitely be responding to those. But yeah, we'll see how we go from there. I think what we did also press on was setting up the products in a way that allows you to do the once-off or the tiered pricing. How would we go about setting that up?
Okay, awesome. So for tiered pricing, as we mentioned, you go to commerce and then products. And once you're here, you'll see all of the products in your system. I'll just go into the chair just to keep it linear, and we'll just keep focusing on the same product as we did on the quote. So if we go into the product itself, we will edit it. Product. And once we're in, we can edit the actual product. You can set a few different things here. Obviously, you can set the different tax category and a few different things, but obviously the thing that is most new and exclusive to Commerce Hub is tiered pricing. So if you click on tiered pricing, we can determine the pricing method. So that pricing method, whether it be volume-based, so say if someone orders 10 or more chairs, they get a discount. It can also be a fixed price based on a tier reached. as well as graduated, which is the total cost is the sum of unit prices from each tier reached. The most normal one is probably the volume-based one, where it's you order 10 or more chairs, you get a slight discount and so on and so forth. So you can go here, we'll go to 10, and we'll go 5, and then maybe $4. So if someone orders 10 or more chairs, they'll get a $1 discount on every chair. So you can see from here, we've got 0 to 9, it's $5, and then 10 to infinity is $4. And then it's simple as just going and updating that product at the top, and now you've got your tiered pricing.
Nice.
And then when you go back into the quote, obviously at this stage, we've obviously sent off that quote, but you would have to recall that quote, edit remove the product, add the product back in, and then send the product back out if you wanted to update that to be tiered pricing. Just important to note that, otherwise it might be a little bit confusing on why it just hasn't gone straight and updated for you.
It's the same with like previous quotes as well. Once they're out and published, then like there's no changes until you recall and edit and then republish, but that's fine.
I think it'd be a little dodgy, I suppose, to update the quote live while someone's already looking at it.
That'd be full on, right? Okay, now that we've covered the products and the tier pricing and stuff, let's talk about our e-commerce customers. How do you make all of this work together?
Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, so obviously with Shopify as a pretty easy example for me, Shopify integrates into orders. It used to basically integrate straight into deals and create a deal for you. I think over time that got a bit cluttered, because if you're just getting random e-commerce orders, especially if you are sort of a retail store or anything like that, and someone goes and purchases a shirt, that order would just go straight into a deal and obviously just randomly generate. And obviously if you're doing your sales process and you have deals in there just normally, it's obviously going to get a bit cluttered.
Yeah.
So now there's a whole new object called orders. I won't go into that too deep because obviously we've done a Shopify conversation on that. And I would recommend going and looking at that video itself.
We'll chat the link in the description below.
But in terms of how it integrates with everything, orders will go into its own section, and payments in Shopify's example will get collected by Shopify. So that'll be a completely different system. So that won't come into HubSpot. It'll just be in its own little section there. In terms of orders, they will live in their own pipeline, so you can just access them it'll be on the left-hand side as well. So anything order related will just be there. Super easy. In terms of products, they can sync over. So any products that you create in Shopify, you can actually sync all those products over to HubSpot. So what gets pretty cool there is obviously you can use HubSpot workflows, you can do all that cool stuff. So if someone places an order for a particular product, that can trigger a workflow in HubSpot. So say if you wanted to send out emails or do email marketing based on particular products, or if, I suppose, customers placing an order, that's kind of how that will all tie in, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I could see that as definitely working smarter when you're running an e-commerce business, for sure. You're probably testing all of this out yourself, aren't you?
Definitely, 100%.
Speaking of e-commerce and everything as well, I think that also marries up with payments and stuff, because previously with the old tool, there was still a lot of fragmentation between sales and accounts. And I think, being able to more easily add in those payment links and stuff, how can we make sure that this is reducing our operational time and our admin time? How do we get the payoff here? Yeah,
definitely. I suppose at this stage, if you're using quotes and you're wanting or are using invoices in HubSpot, it naturally just seems like the easiest thing to do is add payments in HubSpot as well. You might be using Stripe separately, and that might be, I suppose, an easier option for you because of you might get slightly cheaper pricing there, but at the same time, it's a completely separate app. Putting that into HubSpot is a lot of effort, everything like that, but pulling it all under one roof is going to make your life 10 times easier, and it's going to save you so much more admin time. Because if you can just collect payments all through HubSpot for your quotes, once a payment is paid, it'll generate an invoice. You can if you're using Xero, then you can have a Xero integration that syncs straight over to Xero. Super easy, super simple, and you wouldn't even have to think about it. So in terms of payments, I would immediately be getting on that straight away. You can add a payment link to any quote, so people can basically look at the quote, pay straight from that quote, and you can collect payment all through HubSpot.
Who doesn't love that as well?
Exactly.
One step for the customer, super easy, and you don't have to go chasing payments.
Exactly. And then I suppose once a payment has been paid, it'll go into the payments section. So you obviously can see the status of a payment there, whether it's pending, whether it's paid, so on and so forth. And I think if you think about the bigger picture there, is that that's a status. So pending is a status, or and paid is a status. So any of these payment statuses are all, if you think about the bigger picture, triggers for a workflow. So if it gets paid, you can obviously trigger workflow and essentially try and move a deal a stage. If a payment gets paid, it also generate invoices, and if an invoice is paid, you can also move deals based off that status as well. So
you can notify your delivery
exactly,
team.
yeah. You can make it all 10 times easier for you. You can move deals automatically. You want that automation, so you don't have to go into the, like, a payment gets paid, you don't want to go into deals, move it and go to the stage of payment paid. You can just do that automatically. There's no need for those extra steps anymore. I would 100% recommend getting on that as soon as possible. And then I suppose from there, if you are a SaaS company or have some sort of subscription-based product, payments and subscriptions, even though they are separate options on the left-hand side, are very similar. They're very much the same thing. So if you do a payment and you do a one-off payment, that will sit in payments. If you do a payment and it's a ongoing payment, recurring payment, that'll actually sort of live in subscriptions as well. Because if you're doing that ongoing payment and say it's monthly,
well, you can see then
quarterly,
what subscriptions are you actually paying for.
Yeah, exactly. So then if you don't choose that option and you go sort of like a monthly payment, for example, that'll go into subscriptions, and that will connect to a deal as well. So you'll have payments on a deal, and you'll also have obviously alongside invoices and products, you'll also have subscriptions. So a one-off payment will live in payments, and every single time they make a payment for their subscription, it'll go into payments. So it's super easy. But you'll also see the subscription in there too. And you'll see that every month it'll be like an active subscription, and every month they're paying $100, and it's a monthly contract, and you can just see that in there. And I suppose from there, you can talk about ARR, MRR, you can track your forecasting, especially if you have like a cancellation process, like say they have to take 3 months to cancel or something like that, then obviously you can get a really good forecast in the future and really track, I suppose, how much money is coming in, how much money is going to be coming in the future, and what you can look at like a year down the track, which is really awesome.
Totally. And I think that probably moves us along to reporting as well. I think that's actually a really great segue. Because I think especially when we're looking at how do we centralize things, make it easier, get your operational payoffs and stuff, I think also being able to report, especially on these different, tiered models and subscriptions, the reporting part and having it all in one place as well is going to be more reliable too. So is there any new properties that people need to be considering, and what about any out of the gate reports that they can start with? Yeah,
I would say in terms of properties, I don't think you need to worry about that too much, but there are some really cool reports straight out of the gate. So on the left-hand side, if you go to reporting and then reports, you'll notice that there are a few different commerce reports that you can use straight out of the gate. So we've got under Analytics Suites, Commerce, we've got invoices, quotes, subscriptions, and payments. We spoke a little bit about each of these today, and from here you can just click on any of these reports and get all the data you need straight off the bat. So in terms of invoices, if you're B2B and you're sending out invoices and wanting someone to pay from an invoice, you can look at the billed versus actual revenue report. So obviously you can send out an invoice, and that's what, I suppose, $1,000 is outstanding. That's what you've billed. But you probably want to know how many invoices are outstanding, how much actual revenues come in, and that's where this report comes straight in for that. You can also check on the invoice status with a report as well. In terms of quotes, there's a few different ones here. You can see which ones are pending approval, expiring, who was created by, who created them, what have been accepted, so on and so forth. And then subscriptions allows you to see, I suppose, that forecasting element that I was talking about earlier. You can see new subscriptions value, the new subscriptions that have come in. And then in terms of payments, you can obviously see the total payment volume and the gross payment volumes as well. So they're the ones you get straight out of the bat. If you wanted to create a custom report, all of the things we've spoken about today, so subscriptions, payments, invoices, and I suppose just subscriptions in general, are all
data sources that you can choose
they're all
from,
objects.
right?
Yeah, they're all objects in HubSpot. So a subscription, you can create your own custom report. Say if you were saying a create date or something like that for a particular subscription, you can sort of go in the future and track that MRR straight into the future because it'll just go on essentially forever, I suppose. So you probably want to put a limit on how long that's going to go for because you don't expect anyone to churn. But obviously one day they might. So
the way I would do this, especially if this was my first time working with the Commerce Hub and trying to collate everything all in one place, I would certainly be starting with those pre-built reports, seeing how HubSpot has used them to produce data, and that would help me understand, which properties are available to me and how I can build out my own custom reports. Once I know, okay, where are the data gaps? So if you do have any specific types of reporting challenges with that, let us know and we'll see what we can do to show you how to do it. But yeah, I think to wrap things up, some common best practices before you start consolidating everything. One, make sure that your sales and finance teams are aligned before you start building out any complex workflows and setting up these quotes and payments and everything. Make sure everyone's on the same page. It's going to make it a lot easier for you to build out. And also start simple. I think that's best practices for everyone. You can go really, really deep into the weeds with over customizing and makes it a lot harder to adopt with your team. So start simple and build from there. But yeah, any other tips that you would say? Yeah,
I suppose just on that as well, I would probably start with just standard pricing. I wouldn't go into the tiered pricing too much. Start with your standard pricing, just stick with that. Tiered pricing might get a little confusing over time, so I think if you stick with your standard pricing, might be the easiest thing. And also just start with one pipeline. I think that's probably just the safest place to start. Stick with one pipeline, do automation and build, because you're likely going to start with one pipeline. You're going to think of all these ideas and it might overcomplicate it too much. And I think that's something I've seen over the years. It might be doing way too much in your sales pipeline and it might, by the end of it, you go, this is way too much. So start simple, make sure it works for you, and then you can build on it.
But yeah, I think that wraps it up for today. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. If you haven't already, just a quick reminder for next month's Hug, we will have the link in the description below, so definitely register for that. But yeah, I think from there, it's a sad goodbye for Jayden as he goes off and practices all these commerce tips in his own retail store. So if you are in Brisbane as well, make sure you go check him out. But thank you so much, Jayden.
No, thank you.
Yeah, what's the name of your store, Jayden?
Play Mantis. Yeah,
Play
so
Mantis.
if you're into board games,
Do a little plug.
Play Mantis. So if you're into board games or trading card games, come check it out in Annerley.
But yeah,
It's not sponsored.
not sponsored by Play Mantis. You put that at the bottom. Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Speak to you soon.
Bye.